I'm Megan Reynolds, 29, and last month my hard-earned promotion at Barrett Marketing became the backdrop for my family's worst behavior yet. After years of dismissing my career, I invited them to Le Jardin, Boston's most exclusive restaurant, hoping a perfect evening would finally win their approval. The black dress cost 2 weeks' salary. The reservation took 3 months to secure. I never imagined my own family would deliberately humiliate me there. Before I tell you how my celebration turned into a nightmare and how I finally stood up for myself, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from and subscribe if you've ever had to choose between family expectations and your own happiness. To understand what happened that night, you need to know a bit about my family. I grew up in a small town in Pennsylvania where everyone knew everyone. My parents, Daniel and Grace Reynolds, own Reynolds Hardware, the store my grandfather started in 1962. It's the kind of place where customers come as much for conversation as they do for tools and supplies. My father has always taken immense pride in being a small business owner, calling it honest work with tangible results. My brother Kyle, 35, started working at the store when he was 15 and never left. He now manages day-to-day operations and is set to take over when my parents retire. My sister Heather, 32, married her high school sweetheart Derek right after graduation, and they have 3 kids. She's a stay-at-home mom and helps with the store's bookkeeping part-time. Then there's me, the family outlier. From an early age, I was drawn to creativity, marketing, and the wider world beyond our town limits. When I got accepted to Boston University with a partial scholarship, my parents were initially proud but confused about my marketing major. "What exactly will you be making?" my father asked repeatedly, unable to grasp work that didn't result in a physical product. I was the first Reynolds to graduate college. The day should have been triumphant, but I remember my father's awkward handshake more clearly than his congratulations. 4 years and all that money for a piece of paper, he mumbled as we posed for photos. My mother quickly added, "But we're still proud, honey," in that way mothers do when smoothing over uncomfortable truths. After graduation, I landed an entry-level position at Barrett Marketing in Boston. Each promotion widened the gap between my family's world and mine. Phone calls home became exercises in selective editing, downplaying successes to avoid comments about getting too big for your britches, and carefully avoiding mentions of salary increases that would dwarf the store's annual profits. Family gatherings were minefields of backhanded compliments. "Looking expensive these days, Meg," Kyle would say, eyeing my work clothes. Or Heather's specialty. "I could never do what you do. I care too much about being present for my family." The implication was always clear. My success came at a moral cost. My parents took a more subtle approach. They'd introduce me to old neighbors as our Megan, still doing that marketing thing in the city, as if my 8 years building a career were an extended phase I'd eventually outgrow. Beneath their dismissal lay something deeper: fear that my different path somehow invalidated theirs. Every achievement became an implicit criticism of their choices. When I helped a major client increase sales by 40% and mentioned it at Thanksgiving, my father immediately countered with how the hardware store had survived 3 chain competitors moving to town. I developed a pattern of diminishing my accomplishments, laughing off impressive projects as just work stuff, and redirecting conversations to safer territory. I became 2 different people: confident marketing executive Megan in Boston, and just plain Meg back home, the daughter who never quite fit in but tried desperately to belong anyway. The promotion to senior marketing director had been different, though. The position had been created specifically for me after I brought in 3 major clients in 6 months. It came with a corner office, substantial raise, and a team of 8 people reporting directly to me. For once, I couldn't downplay it. For once, I truly wanted my family to understand what I had accomplished. I wanted them to see that the path I'd chosen had value, that I had value, even if it wasn't the life they had imagined for me. Maybe then the constant pull between my 2 worlds would finally ease. Maybe then I could stop feeling like loving my career somehow meant betraying my family. The moment I received the official promotion email, I began planning the perfect celebration dinner. Not at some chain restaurant near my parents' town, but at Le Jardin, Boston's most exclusive dining establishment, where reservations typically required 6 months' notice. I called in a favor from a client whose company regularly booked their private dining room. Even so, it took 3 months to secure a Friday night table for 6. I requested their best location, a corner spot near the window, with views of the Boston Common, partially secluded by elegant dividers adorned with living plants. It was perfect, private enough for family conversation, but positioned to showcase the restaurant's breathtaking interior. Next came the menu research. My family's culinary experiences were limited to chain restaurants and hometown diners. I studied Le Jardin's seasonal offerings, mentally matching each family member to dishes they might enjoy, despite the unfamiliar ingredients. For my father, I noted the dry-aged steak that avoided fancy sauces. For Kyle, the hearty short rib that wouldn't seem too small. For Heather and Derek, I found seafood options without weird preparations. Mom would probably enjoy the chicken, prepared simply, but with quality that would speak for itself. I created a detailed email about the restaurant, emphasizing the dress code without sounding condescending. Business formal attire is strictly enforced, I wrote, adding links to appropriate outfit examples and even offering to help with shopping if they arrived early. I scheduled the reservation for 8 p.m., arranging a car service to collect them from their hotel at 7:30. 2 weeks before the dinner, I spent a Saturday shopping for the perfect outfit. The black cocktail dress I finally selected cost $800, nearly 2 weeks of take-home pay, even with my new salary. The classic silhouette with subtle beading at the neckline was elegant without being flashy. I paired it with simple pearl earrings my parents had given me for college graduation, and splurged on a professional blowout and subtle makeup application the afternoon of the dinner. "You're setting yourself up for disappointment," my friend Rachel warned during our pre-dinner phone call. "They've never supported your career before. Why would an expensive dinner change anything?" "This time is different," I insisted, sliding into my heels. "The promotion is too significant to dismiss, and I'm not taking them to some pretentious place they can later mock." Le Jardin is objectively impressive. Even Kyle can't deny that. Rachel's sigh carried through the phone. "Just promise you won't let them ruin this for you. This promotion is a big deal, Meg. If they can't see that, it's their loss." I practiced my announcement speech in the bathroom mirror that morning. "I wanted to share this moment with the people who matter most to me," I rehearsed, imagining their proud smiles. In my visualization, my father would finally say the words I'd been waiting to hear. "We were wrong, Megan. What you've built is remarkable." I arranged thoughtful gifts for each of them. A handcrafted leather wallet for Dad from a local artisan, specialty coffee beans for Mom from my favorite cafe, custom beer steins for Kyle and Derek from a brewery client, and a beautiful scarf for Heather from a boutique near my office. Each gift carefully chosen to bridge our different worlds. Before leaving my apartment, I checked my appearance one final time. The woman in the mirror looked confident, successful, and hopeful. I practiced my smile until it felt natural, pushed away memories of previous disappointments, and headed out to meet my family, determined that tonight would finally be different. The first warning sign appeared when I pulled up to the Marriott where my family was staying. Instead of waiting in the lobby as I'd suggested, they were huddled outside on the sidewalk, looking uncomfortable and conspicuously out of place among the business travelers in suits. My heart sank as I assessed their outfits. Despite my detailed emails about Le Jardin's strict dress code, they were dramatically underdressed. Kyle wore dark jeans, his good pair with minimal wear at the knees, paired with a plaid button-down shirt and the same work boots he wore at the hardware store, merely wiped clean for the occasion. Heather had chosen a floral sundress more appropriate for a casual brunch than fine dining, while Derek sported khakis with a short-sleeved polo shirt that still bore the faint outline of a removed logo. My parents had made more effort, but their Sunday best still fell short. Dad wore a navy blazer that had likely fit him properly 20 years ago, paired with gray slacks and a tie that immediately identified him as someone who rarely wore one. Mom had chosen a pastel skirt suit that would have been elegant for a small-town bank opening, but looked dated and informal in Boston's upscale dining scene. I took a deep breath, reminding myself that clothing shouldn't matter. This was about celebrating with family. Yet I couldn't quiet the voice warning me that Le Jardin's maitre d' had turned away tech billionaires for violating their dress code. There she is, the big city executive, Kyle announced as I approached, his voice carrying across the hotel driveway. Nice car. Lease or loan? It's a company car, I explained, kissing Mom's cheek. Part of the new position. Must be nice having everything handed to you, he replied with a sharp edge beneath his smile. Dad inspected the BMW with suspicious eyes. Seems flashy for a marketing company. Your client's paying too much, I reckon. The car projects a certain image, I explained, immediately hating how defensive I sounded. It's expected at my level. Mom patted my arm. We're just teasing, honey. We're so excited for your special dinner. The drive to Le Jardin was tense, despite my attempts at casual conversation. From the back seat, Heather commented, the kids were so sad Auntie Megan's dinner couldn't be somewhere they could come too. I would have loved to include them, I replied carefully. But Le Jardin doesn't allow children under 12. We can do a family lunch this weekend? Probably for the best, Derek added. Kids wouldn't appreciate all this fancy stuff anyway. When we pulled up to the restaurant, the illuminated facade of Le Jardin glowed with understated elegance. A doorman in a tailored uniform approached to open our doors while a valet waited for my keys. This is ridiculous, my father muttered, reluctantly exiting the car. Grown men opening doors like we can't do it ourselves. The restaurant's exterior featured delicate lighting, highlighting historic architecture, with window boxes of fresh herbs representing the restaurant's farm-to-table philosophy. Through the windows, I could glimpse crystal chandeliers, white tablecloths, and the subtle movement of impeccably dressed staff. At the hostess stand, a poised woman in a black sheath dress assessed our group with a quick, professional glance. Her smile remained fixed, but I caught the momentary tightening around her eyes as she noted my family's attire. Good evening. Welcome to Le Jardin. Do you have a reservation with us tonight? Yes. Reynolds' party of 6 at 8, I replied, stepping forward. I believe we're at the window corner table. She consulted her tablet, then nodded. Of course, Miss Reynolds. We've been expecting you. If you'll follow me. As we proceeded through the dining room, I became acutely aware of the contrast between my family and our surroundings. Other diners wore custom suits and designer dresses. Conversations were conducted in measured tones. The gentle clink of fine china and crystal created a sophisticated symphony that my father's too loud whisper immediately disrupted. Would you look at these prices? He exclaimed, squinting at a menu on a neighboring table as we passed. $35 for a starter? Highway robbery? Several heads turned. My cheeks burned as I whispered, Dad, please. A floor manager appeared, his expression professionally neutral but questioning. For one horrifying moment, I thought we might be asked to leave. I stepped toward him. Reynolds' party? I said quietly. Barrett Marketing. Table confirmed by Jeffrey Morton. Recognition flickered in his eyes. Jeffrey was a significant client, and he nodded. Of course. Right this way, please. Our table was everything I'd requested. Elegant settings of bone china, crystal stemware, and silver flatware, arranged with mathematical precision on a pristine white tablecloth. A small arrangement of seasonal flowers served as a centerpiece, and the soft lighting created an intimate atmosphere, despite the restaurant's spaciousness. As we were seated, I noted my family's obvious discomfort. Mom perched on the edge of her chair, like she might flee at any moment. Kyle sprawled as if deliberately contrasting with the formal setting. Heather immediately moved her wine glass to make room for her oversized purse on the table until a server smoothly appeared to offer a purse stool. This is the nicest restaurant I've ever seen, Mom offered kindly, trying to mask her unease. Lot of fuss for just eating dinner, Dad countered, tugging at his collar. I unfolded my napkin, hoping the familiar ritual of a meal would soon ease the tension. I thought we could celebrate properly. This is Boston's best restaurant. We could feed the whole town for what this dinner will cost, Kyle muttered, loud enough for the adjacent table to hear. A sommelier approached with practiced timing, presenting the wine list bound in leather. "Perhaps we could begin with a glass of champagne to celebrate Miss Reynolds' achievement," he suggested smoothly. Before I could respond, my father waved dismissively. "Just bring water for the table. We'll decide on drinks with dinner." As the sommelier retreated, I saw my careful plans beginning to unravel, but I forced a smile. "Let's look at the menus. They have something for everyone." The oversized leather-bound menus arrived, presented with a flourish by our primary server, an elegant woman named Clarissa. "This evening, Chef Bernard has prepared a seasonal tasting menu featuring local spring ingredients," she explained. "I'd be happy to guide you through any unfamiliar items." "What's this?" Kyle asked, pointing aggressively at the menu. "Duck liver pate? People actually eat that?" "It's a delicacy," I explained quietly. "Similar to a spread that you have with crackers or bread." "Sounds disgusting," he announced, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. "They don't have normal appetizers? Like mozzarella sticks or something?" Clarissa maintained her professional composure. "We do have a wonderful artisanal cheese plate featuring local producers if you'd prefer something more familiar." "And these prices!" my father exclaimed, not bothering to lower his voice. $42 for an appetizer? What's it come with? A gold brick?" A couple at the next table glanced over, then deliberately turned away, leaning closer to each other. My cheeks burned with embarrassment. "Dad, please," I whispered. "This is a special occasion. Special enough to spend a week's grocery budget on one meal?" he countered. I took a deep breath. "I've been looking forward to sharing this experience with you. I can cover the bill. It's my treat." Mom patted my hand. "That's very generous, sweetheart. We just aren't used to such extravagance." When Clarissa returned, I took control of ordering. "We'll start with the cheese plate for the table, the seasonal salad, and the scallop appetizer to share." As she departed, I decided to attempt steering the conversation toward my news again. "So, I wanted to tell you more about my promotion." "Before you start," Kyle interrupted, "did I tell you about the new display system I implemented at the store? Increased sales in the power tools section by 15%. "That's wonderful," I acknowledged. "But show her the pictures, Kyle," Heather encouraged. "Megan needs to see how you transformed the entire layout." Kyle pulled out his phone, scrolling through poorly lit images of hardware displays, while narrating each minor change in excruciating detail. I nodded politely, watching my moments slip away again. When the sommelier returned to take our wine order, I saw an opportunity to recapture some control of the evening. "I'd recommend the Willamette Valley Pinot Noir," I suggested. "It's exceptional and should pair nicely with everyone's preferences." "Since when are you a wine expert?" Kyle snorted. "Part of my job involves client dinners," I explained. "You learn about wine pairings." "We'll take the house red," my father told the sommelier, dismissing my suggestion. "Whatever's cheapest by the glass." The sommelier's expression remained neutral, but I caught the subtle flicker of judgment in his eyes. "Perhaps a bottle for the table would be more economical if everyone is having wine?" "Fine," Dad conceded. "The cheapest bottle, then." Mom leaned over, stage whispering loudly enough for nearby tables to hear. "Megan, you don't need to show off your fancy wine knowledge. We know you're sophisticated now." My attempt to salvage some dignity crumbled as Heather's husband Derek eyed Clarissa inappropriately when she returned with water refills. "Now that's the kind of service that deserves a tip," he remarked with a wink that made me want to disappear under the table. I tried once more. "About my promotion?" "Oh, that reminds me," Kyle interrupted loudly. "Remember when Megan was in the 6th grade play? The one where she forgot all her lines?" My stomach dropped. "Not this story. Not here." "She was playing the lead tree in that environment thing," Kyle continued, warming to his audience as our appetizers arrived. "Had exactly 3 lines to remember." "Kyle, please," I whispered, noticing heads turning at nearby tables. "So there she is in her tree costume," he continued, ignoring me completely. "And when her cue comes, she just stands there with her mouth open. 'No sound, Mrs.' Benson kept prompting her from off stage, but nothing. Finally, she just burst into tears, right there on stage. Ran off crying with all those paper leaves falling off her costume." My family erupted in laughter. Derek actually slapped the table, causing the fine china to rattle and more diners to stare. She was always so dramatic, Heather added. Remember how she wouldn't come out of her room for 2 days afterward? I was 11, I said quietly, fighting to keep my voice steady. And I had a fever of 102 that night. The school nurse confirmed it the next day. No one acknowledged my correction. They were too busy wiping tears of laughter from their eyes. Excuse me, I murmured, standing abruptly. I need to visit the ladies' room. As I turned to leave, my mother called after me. Don't be so sensitive, Megan. We're just having fun. Or are you too good for family jokes now that you're a big city executive? I froze mid-step, aware of the eyes on me, the whispered conversations at nearby tables. Slowly, I sat back down, blinking rapidly to hold back tears. The appetizers sat before us, beautifully arranged on pristine white plates. The artisanal cheeses, each one carefully selected and paired with house-made accompaniments, might as well have been plastic for all my family appreciated them. These portions are ridiculous, my father complained, using his fingers to grab a piece of cheese. This wouldn't feed a child. These are just starters, Dad, I explained, watching him ignore the small serving utensils provided. The main courses are more substantial. Better be, for these prices, he grumbled. I picked at my food, my appetite vanishing as I struggled to understand why I kept seeking approval from people determined not to give it. Why did I keep trying? What was I hoping to prove? And why did it still hurt so much when they cut me down? The appetizers were cleared away, and a brief lull in conversation gave me another opportunity. I reached for my water glass, tapping it gently with my fork to get everyone's attention. I'd like to share something important with you all, I began, forcing confidence into my voice. The reason I wanted us to have this special dinner is that I've been promoted to Senior Marketing Director at Barrett. There was a moment of silence before my mother responded, "That sounds impressive, honey. Does it come with a raise?" "Yes," I answered, feeling a small spark of hope at her interest. "It's substantial. I'll be overseeing a team of 8 people and managing our largest client portfolios." "That's nice," she said vaguely, then immediately pivoted. "Kyle just got the Rotary Club's Small Business Excellence Award, 3rd year in a row for the store." "That's great, Kyle," I acknowledged, trying to hide my disappointment. "Congratulations. Community recognition means a lot," my father added pointedly. "Real people appreciating real work." Heather reached across the table to squeeze my hand in what might have been genuine affection. "We're proud of you, Meg, really. Though I do worry about your work-life balance. You're not getting any younger, you know. Any prospects on the horizon?" Before I could answer, she continued, "Some of us chose family over career. Different priorities, I guess." "I haven't met the right person yet," I replied carefully. "But I'm happy with my choices." "You always were career-focused," my mother sighed. "I just hope you don't wake up one day and regret not having children. Biological clocks don't care about promotions." Derek nodded sagely. "Career women often end up alone. Statistics show it." I bit my tongue, reminding myself that engaging would only make things worse. The main courses arrived a momentary distraction as Clarissa and another server presented our dishes with practiced synchronization. "To change the subject," I said, raising my wine glass once the servers departed, "I'd like to propose a toast. To family, to success in all its forms, and to supporting each other's dreams, whatever they may be." As glasses clinked around the table, Kyle's arm extended with unusual force, colliding with my glass, and sending red wine cascading down the front of my $800 black dress. The cold liquid shocked me into momentary stillness as the dark stain spread across the delicate fabric. Conversations at nearby tables halted as all eyes turned toward our commotion. "Oops," Kyle said, his insincere apology belied by the subtle smirk he exchanged with Derek. "Clumsy me." "Oh no," Heather exclaimed with exaggerated concern that didn't reach her eyes. "Your expensive dress." My mother handed me her napkin, already damp from water. "Dab, don't rub," she instructed, as if I were still a child. "Though black hide stains better than most colors." "That's fortunate." I could feel tears threatening but refused to let them fall. "Excuse me," I managed, rising from my chair with as much dignity as I could muster. I'll try to clean up in the restroom. The walk through the dining room felt interminable, the stain on my dress like a spotlight, announcing my humiliation to every diner. In the elegant marble bathroom, I dabbed frantically at the spreading wine stain, fighting back tears of frustration. "Wine on silk is tough," came a sympathetic voice. I looked up to see a woman about my age, stylishly dressed in a tailored pantsuit, offering a packet of stain wipes. "Try these. They're designed for red wine emergencies." "Thank you," I said, accepting the wipes gratefully. I should have known better than to wear something special tonight. She introduced herself as Sophia while helping me blot the stain. "Family dinner? Is it that obvious?" I asked, meeting her eyes in the mirror. "The dynamics were a bit noticeable," she admitted with diplomatic kindness. "I was actually going to come introduce myself after your meal. I recognized you from the Barrett marketing presentation at the Chamber of Commerce event last month. The healthcare client campaign? Brilliant work." I stared at her in surprise. "You were there? I'm Sophia Chen, CMO at Meridian Health Systems," she explained. "Your presentation was the highlight of the conference." A strange feeling washed over me, professional recognition from a complete stranger, while my own family couldn't muster basic respect for my career. After 10 minutes of damage control, the stain had faded to a dull shadow. "It's as good as it's going to get," I sighed. "Thank you for your help." "Family can be complicated," Sophia offered kindly. "For what it's worth, I've been following your work for months. The industry notices talent, even when family doesn't." I returned to the table with her words echoing in my mind, only to discover a new shock. During my absence, my family had ordered the second course without waiting, including a $300 bottle of Cabernet Sauvignon that sat open and half-consumed at the center of the table. "We got tired of waiting," my father explained without apology. "And since you're paying, we thought we'd try the good stuff for once." They were enjoying this, I realized with sudden clarity. My humiliation was entertaining them. The stained dress, the undermined announcement, the dismissal of my career, none of it was accidental. It was a pattern that had persisted my entire life, one I had consistently excused and enabled. I looked at the wine stain on my dress, the expensive bottle they'd ordered out of spite rather than appreciation, and the barely concealed satisfaction on Kyle's face. A lifetime of similar moments flashed through my mind, achievements diminished, confidence undermined, successes reframed as selfishness. For the first time, I saw the pattern with perfect clarity, and something inside me shifted irrevocably. The main courses arrived with elaborate presentation, each played a canvas of culinary artistry. The chef had created a seasonal spring theme, with vibrant colors and architectural elements that transformed simple ingredients into edible art. Kyle immediately pulled out his phone, taking flash photos that disrupted the restaurant's carefully cultivated ambiance. "This is ridiculous," he announced, zooming in on his plate. "There's more decoration than food. Look at these tiny carrots." Derek joined in, positioning his plate for an unflattering angle. "Gotta document this for the guys back home. They'll never believe we paid actual money for this." "It's called plating," I explained quietly. "It's part of the dining experience." "Seems pretentious," my father declared, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. "Food should look like food, not an art project." A young boy at a neighboring table pointed toward us. "Daddy, why is that man being so loud?" His embarrassed father whispered something in response, and Kyle, overhearing, made an obscene joke about stuffy restaurants that caused the child's mother to cover her son's ears with a shocked expression. The restaurant manager appeared at our table with remarkable speed. "Is everything to your satisfaction this evening?" he asked, his polite tone carrying a subtle warning. "The food is excellent, thank you," I responded quickly. My father had other ideas. "Actually, the portions are ridiculously small, and—" "Dad," I interrupted firmly. "The food is fine." The manager nodded professionally and departed, but the damage was done. The subtle murmur of disapproval from surrounding tables was unmistakable. "You didn't need to cut me off," my father snapped once the manager was out of earshot. "Some of us speak our minds instead of worrying what strangers think." There's a difference between speaking your mind and being deliberately rude, I countered, my patience finally wearing thin. There she goes, my mother sighed dramatically, always too concerned with appearances. I'm concerned with basic courtesy, I clarified. This restaurant has been nothing but accommodating, despite. I stopped myself before saying, despite your inappropriate behavior, but Heather caught my meaning. Despite what? Despite us not fitting into your fancy new life? Some of us don't have time to learn wine pairings and fancy etiquette because we're too busy raising families and supporting the community. I've never asked any of you to be anything other than respectful, I said, struggling to keep my voice level. And this dinner was meant to be a celebration, not an opportunity for you to mock my career and life choices. Maybe if you hadn't abandoned the family business, you'd understand why we find all this, Kyle gestured broadly at the restaurant, so ridiculous. You left us behind, Megan. You decided you were too good for Reynolds Hardware. The restaurant had grown oddly quiet. I realized with horror that our conversation had become the evening's entertainment for nearby diners. I didn't abandon anything, I said, my voice quavering. I chose a different path. That doesn't mean I left the family. You're never there for important events, Heather accused. You missed Tommy's birthday last month. Because you told me it was the following weekend. I shot back, finally losing my composure. I found out from Mom's Facebook post that you changed the date without telling me. You're too busy for us, my mother interjected. Too important now. I've invited all of you to Boston multiple times, I said, frustration building. In 8 years, not one of you has visited me. Not once. We have responsibilities, my father replied dismissively. Real ones, not pushing papers around an office. The tension that had been building all evening finally snapped. What do you think I do all day? I demanded, my voice rising despite my efforts to control it. You have no idea what my job entails because you've never bothered to ask or listen when I tell you. We know enough, Kyle retorted. You sit in meetings and make PowerPoints while some of us do actual work with our hands. That paper pushing you mock paid for this entire dinner, I fired back. It bought the gifts I brought you. It funds the plane tickets home for every holiday when none of you ever reciprocate. It's skilled, valuable work that you've dismissed from day one. There's the truth, my father said coldly. You think your work makes you better than us. You always have. No, I exclaimed, tears finally spilling over. I've spent years downplaying my successes to make you comfortable. Years pretending my accomplishments don't matter because you take every achievement as a personal insult. The restaurant had fallen completely silent now, all pretense of privacy abandoned. Remember when I made the dean's list and you told me not to get a big head about it? I continued, years of hurt pouring out. Or when I landed the Anderson account and saved the jobs of 15 people, and you changed the subject to Kyle's new shelving system? Or when I bought my first apartment and you spent the entire call telling me it was foolish not to rent? My voice cracked. I flew home for every birthday, every anniversary, every important moment in your lives. I call every week. I listen to every detail about the store and the kids and the community. But not one of you, not one has ever shown genuine interest in my world. That's not fair, my mother protested weakly. Isn't it? When was the last time any of you asked me about my work without immediately changing the subject or making a dismissive comment? When have you ever celebrated my successes without immediately competing with them? No one answered. You've spent this entire evening trying to humiliate me, I said, the realization solidifying as I spoke. The dress code I explained multiple times? Ignored. The wine spilled on my dress? Deliberate. Ordering an expensive bottle while I was in the bathroom? Spiteful. My father's face darkened. Now you're being dramatic. Nobody. This is what you always do, I interrupted, my voice steady despite the tears streaming down my face. Gaslight me into thinking I'm overreacting, that I'm too sensitive, that your behavior is normal. It's not normal to sabotage your daughter's celebration dinner. We should go, my mother murmured, looking around at the silent, staring diners. You know what? I said, standing up and accidentally knocking over my water glass. Maybe we should. The crash of crystal against fine china punctuated the absolute silence that had fallen over the entire restaurant. Water spread across the white tablecloth, like the final act of a tragedy, 8 years in the making. I stood there, dress stained, makeup smeared from tears, facing my family's stunned expressions and the witness judgment of Boston's elite dining crowd. It was, without question, the most humiliating moment of my professional life. As I prepared to surrender to complete mortification, a confident voice broke through the silence. "Megan Reynolds?" I turned to see Sophia from the restroom approaching our table with purposeful strides. She stopped beside me, her professional demeanor commanding immediate attention. "I apologize for interrupting your family dinner," she said, her voice carrying easily in the silent restaurant. "I'm Sophia Chen, Chief Marketing Officer at Meridian Health Systems. I've been meaning to introduce myself properly." My family stared in confusion as Sophia continued, addressing me as if we were the only people in the room. "Your campaign for Barrett Healthcare Solutions was revolutionary. The patient engagement metrics alone have transformed how we approach our marketing strategy. The testimonial-driven content outperformed every industry benchmark by double digits." She turned slightly, including my family in her gaze, but maintaining her professional tone. "I've been following your work for months. The medical device launch you orchestrated last quarter? Brilliant targeting. Your approach to demographic segmentation is being discussed in industry circles as the new gold standard." From my peripheral vision, I could see neighboring diners nodding in recognition of Sophia's company, one of Boston's largest employers and a household name in healthcare. "I've actually been hoping to connect with you," she continued. "Meridian is creating a new VP position for strategic marketing communications. After seeing your work, you're at the top of our candidate list. The salary range begins at $250 with full benefits and equity options." She smoothly handed me a business card. "I'd love to have you come in next week to discuss possibilities." The impact of her words was immediate. $250,000 was more than my parents' hardware store made in profit most years. It was more than double Kyle's salary, the kind of money that, in my hometown, was reserved for doctors and lawyers with decades of experience. My father's mouth had fallen open slightly. Kyle was staring at his plate, suddenly fascinated by the arrangement of his half-eaten food. Heather and Derek exchanged uncomfortable glances. The restaurant manager, sensing a shift in the dynamic, appeared with perfect timing. "Is everything all right here?" "Perfectly fine," Sophia replied with professional warmth. "In fact, we're celebrating Miss Reynolds' exceptional work. Perhaps a complimentary dessert would be appropriate?" "I'd be happy to cover it." "No need," the manager responded with a knowing smile. "Le Jardin would be honored to provide dessert for Miss Reynolds. Her work with Barrett Marketing has impressed many of our regular patrons." I found my voice at last. "Thank you, both. That's incredibly kind." As the manager departed, Sophia lowered her voice. "I meant every word. The offer is genuine. Call me Monday." She squeezed my shoulder supportively. "Family dynamics can be complicated. Mine didn't understand my career path either, until they couldn't ignore my success anymore." She nodded respectfully to my stunned family before returning to her table, where several well-dressed executives waited. In her wake, the restaurant gradually returned to its normal ambient noise level, the moment of public drama concluding. But something fundamental had shifted in our family dynamic. The undeniable external validation from a stranger of obvious professional significance had disrupted decades of established patterns. My mother found her voice first. "She seems impressive." "She is," I confirmed, surprising myself with my steady tone. "Meridian is a Fortune 500 company." An uncomfortable silence settled over our table. For once, no one rushed to change the subject or diminish the moment. The recognition hung in the air between us, impossible to dismiss or reframe. I took a slow, centering breath and considered the business card in my hand, physical proof that I wasn't imagining my professional worth. Strangers valued my work even when my family couldn't or wouldn't. The realization was simultaneously liberating and heartbreaking. Dessert menus arrived, offering a temporary distraction. Dad cleared his throat twice, but said nothing. Kyle studied the wine label with newfound interest. Heather's eyes darted between me and Sophia's table. "She's right, you know," Heather finally said, her voice unusually subdued. Your work is? It's impressive, Meg. I don't understand it, but clearly others do. It was the closest thing to genuine acknowledgement I'd received all evening, possibly in years. I met her eyes, searching for sincerity and finding, if not that exactly, at least an absence of the usual dismissal. Thank you, I said simply. The rest of the dinner passed in uncharacteristic restraint. My family, confronted with external evidence of my professional standing, seemed unsure how to proceed without their usual dynamics. Their awkwardness was almost more uncomfortable than their previous behavior. But as I sat there, something shifted within me. For years, I'd measured my worth through my family's validation, or lack thereof. I'd diminished my accomplishments, downplayed my successes, and contorted myself to fit their expectations, all while telling myself that family acceptance was the ultimate marker of success. Yet here was irrefutable evidence that I had value in the world, professional respect, recognition, and opportunities that had nothing to do with my family's approval. The realization was profound. I didn't need them to validate my choices anymore. My path had worth regardless of their ability to see it. As we finished dessert, I realized I felt different. The burning need for their approval had cooled. In its place was something new, a calm certainty about who I was and what I had built, with or without their blessing. As the dessert plates were cleared away, I placed my napkin on the table and addressed my family with newfound composure. I think it's time we discuss what happened here tonight, I said, my voice steady. This dinner was meant to celebrate my promotion, a significant achievement in my career. Instead, it became an opportunity for each of you to undermine, embarrass, and belittle me in public. Now, Megan, my father began. I held up my hand. Please let me finish. For years, I've diminished my accomplishments to make all of you comfortable. I've listened to endless stories about the hardware store, about the kids, about community events I've missed, all while you've shown zero interest in my world. Kyle shifted uncomfortably in his seat. We ask about your job. You ask so you can dismiss it, I corrected him. There's a difference between polite inquiry and genuine interest. Not once has anyone in this family visited me in Boston, despite countless invitations. Not once have you asked meaningful questions about my work without immediately changing the subject. I looked each of them in the eye. I've spent years believing I needed your approval to validate my choices. Tonight made me realize I've been seeking acknowledgement from people determined not to give it. That stops now. My mother's eyes filled with tears. Sweetheart, we love you. We're proud of you. If that were true, I replied gently, tonight would have been very different. Love includes respect, Mom. Proud people don't deliberately humiliate family members. I signaled for the check, which Clarissa brought promptly. I glanced at the total, just over $1,200, including the wine my family had ordered during my absence. Regarding the bill, I said, removing my credit card from my wallet, I'll be paying for my portion and the tip for the entire table. The rest is your responsibility. What? My father sputtered. You said you were treating us. That was before you deliberately spilled wine on my dress, ordered a $300 bottle while I was cleaning up, and spent the evening mocking my career and life choices. I replied calmly. Actions have consequences. Kyle's face darkened. You can't be serious. We came all the way to Boston for your dinner. Yes, and then proceeded to violate every reasonable request I made, from dress code to basic respect, I answered. The dinner for 6 would have cost me around $900. The wine you ordered while I was in the bathroom adds another $300. My dress, which Kyle ruined, cost $800. Your behavior has been extraordinarily expensive. Panic flashed across my father's face as he realized I was serious. We can't afford this kind of bill, Megan. You know that. I'm aware of your financial situation, Dad. Unlike all of you, I've always shown interest in your lives. I placed my card on the leather folio. My portion comes to approximately $200. Plus, I'll leave a 25% tip on the entire bill to apologize to the staff for the disruption. That's $500 from me. The remaining $700 is yours. This is ridiculous, Kyle snapped, his voice rising again. You make all this money, And now you're nickel and diming your own family? Proving my point about how selfish you've become. A businessman at the next table cleared his throat deliberately, giving Kyle a pointed look. The brief interaction deflated my brother's bluster immediately. This isn't about money, I clarified. It's about respect. For 8 years, I've flown home for every event, sent thoughtful gifts, listened to your stories, and celebrated your achievements. All while you've dismissed my career as meaningless and treated my successes as personal affronts. Tonight was simply the most public manifestation of a pattern that's existed since I left for college. I stood, gathering my purse. I care about all of you. That hasn't changed. But I no longer need your approval to validate my choices. And I won't continue participating in relationships where basic respect isn't reciprocated. My mother began crying softly. Please don't do this, Megan. I'm not cutting you off, Mom, I assured her. I'm establishing boundaries. You're all welcome in my life when you can demonstrate the same level of respect I've always shown you. My father's face had paled considerably as he stared at the bill. Heather, surprisingly, was the first to speak with something approaching understanding. You're right, she admitted quietly. We haven't been fair to you. I think we've been jealous, Meg. Your life seems so exciting compared to ours. It's easier to dismiss it than admit we might have made different choices. It was the most honest thing Heather had said to me in years. Thank you for acknowledging that, I replied sincerely. That means a lot. I signed my portion of the bill and stood to leave. I'll text tomorrow about lunch plans. If you'd like to join me, I'd love to show you some of Boston. If not, I understand. Either way, I wish you a good night and safe travels home. As I walked away, my father called after me, his voice smaller than I'd ever heard it. Megan, wait! But for once, I didn't turn back at his command. I continued through the restaurant, with my head held high, despite the wine-stained dress and the curious glances of other diners. Near the entrance, Sophia caught my eye and gave me a subtle nod of approval. Several other diners made brief eye contact, some offering small smiles of support. Outside in the cool spring air, I took my first deep breath in hours. The weight of expectations I'd been carrying for years seemed to lift slightly. My phone chimed with a text from Rachel. How'd it go? Do I need to bring ice cream? I smiled, typing back. It was a disaster that needed to happen. No ice cream needed. I'll call tomorrow with details. For the first time in my adult life, I felt fully aligned with my choices. No apologies, no diminishment, no seeking approval that would never come. The night had been humiliating, yes, but from that humiliation had come something unexpected and precious, liberation. Thank you for listening to my story. I'd love to hear if you've ever had to stand up to family who didn't support your choices. Sometimes the hardest boundaries to set are with the people we love most. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button, subscribe to hear more stories about setting boundaries and finding your worth, and share with someone who might need to hear this message. Remember that your path is valid even when others don't understand it. I'm sending strength to anyone struggling to be seen and respected by the people who should be your biggest supporters.